Hey, welcome back, scholars, to week 5 of Quarantined AP Lang. I hope all of you are staying healthy and keeping your minds occupied. Hope no one's getting too stir-crazy staying at home and missing out on seeing everyone every day. In this introductory video, I want to talk about, first of all, late work procedure. Need to reiterate that. I want to talk about the procedure for peer grade evaluations and what we're going to do with that process going forward. I want to talk a little bit about timed essay writing because I've had a couple of issues come up with that. And then lastly, we'll take a look at this week at a glance. So, late work procedures. This is something that I've had to answer a number of individual questions about via email, and I've sent out a couple of different announcements about it, trying to pin this thing down. So I just want to go over once and for all what the late work submission procedures are. First of all, the deadlines are still midnight at Sunday. Technically, it's 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. If you wait until the clock ticks over to 12, that's technically Monday morning. So make sure you get everything in by 11:59 p.m. Sunday night. And if you ever miss that 11:59 p.m. deadline, here's what you need to do. In each week's assignment page, there is a link to the missed deadlines reflections form. You will need to fill that out. It's a Google Doc. You'll need to make a copy of it, fill it out. Make sure you fill it out thoroughly and make sure you answer all the questions specifically. And then you'll need to email a PDF copy of that completed reflections form along with the completed late work to me. Once I receive your email with the missed deadline reflections and your completed work, I'll look everything over, make sure it's completed correctly, and then I'll email you back letting you know that I have opened the assignment back up for you in Canvas. You must then submit that late work by the following Sunday. And so it's basically just giving you a week's extension within the Canvas system to turn it back in. Please keep in mind that I'm only expected to check my email during the school week until 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you try to email me your missed deadline reflections and completed work after 3:30 on a Friday, I won't see it in time to open the assignment back up in Canvas for you to make that following Sunday deadline. And if you ever are unable to get work submitted by 1 week after the original deadline, then it's too late. The assignment becomes a 0 in the grade book. And while you may have other opportunities down the road to help improve that grade, it does stay a 0. There's no way to make it up after that. Please also keep in mind that this late work procedure, the expectation is that if you get behind on your work, you're expected to catch up eventually. You're not allowed to be perpetually 1 week late on everything if you miss one deadline. So for those of you who have already had to fill out one of these things, make sure you're getting caught up during that week. You have to put in the extra time to get caught up. You can't just keep stringing out extra week upon extra week upon extra week. You have to get caught up. All right, let's talk about peer grade. With peer grade, we're doing kind of a 2-week cycle where at the end of 1 week, you submit an essay that will then be, you'll use in a peer evaluation session the following week. I was successfully able to set up that combined AP Lang class, so our evaluations going forward are going to be combined in the big class of 149 of you guys. So you're going to get a lot of different perspectives on your peer review. But I just wanted to reiterate that you must submit your essay by the submission deadline, which is a Sunday night at midnight. You cannot submit it late. I know this week I allowed a couple of you to do that, and it kind of messed up some of the logistics of the assignment. So no more late assignments on peer grade. Just if you submit it by the deadline, then you'll get a chance to participate in the peer evaluation. If you do not submit by the deadline, then you will not be able to participate in the peer evaluation session the following week. So make sure you submit it by the deadline. And let's talk about those timed essays. You wrote your first one last week. It was set up in a Canvas quiz, which didn't have anyone email me about technology problems with that. No one had a glitchy timer or anything like that, so that's good. I did have a couple of you, however, who went over your timer and then asked me to reopen the assignment, or you sent it to me along with like late work reflections and that sort of thing. And so I need to talk about that. The timed essays, as as I mentioned last week, are practice for the exam. You absolutely must submit them within the timer that you're given. That means that some of you will be submitting essays that are unfinished, but that's something that you just have to get over doing because you cannot have more time on the exam. And I know that there's this temptation to think that, oh, well, now it's just for practice, so if I take a little extra time, that's okay. On the actual thing, I'll definitely not do that. But that's not how the human mind works. We perform how we practice. And so what I need you guys to do, those of you who went over your time and that sort of thing, just redouble your efforts and make sure that you turn in what you have by the end of that timer. So when 5 minutes are left, you finish that sentence you're on and you go ahead and copy and paste everything in and hit submit because you cannot get in the habit of taking extra time, because on the exam day, College Board just will not let you have that extra time. And if there's nothing in the box when your time runs out, you're going to get a 0, and that's all there is to it. So let's make sure we're meeting our time limits on those practice timed essays. Now it's time for week 5 at a glance. This week is going to start off much like this last week did, with another timed essay. This is Q2 Rhetorical Analysis essay number 5. This week's essay will have a 50-minute timer, which is 5 more minutes than you'll have on the actual exam. Next week, we're going to be at live exam time. After your timed essay, you'll have just one Q2 enrichment lesson this week. I've done just one because it's a really important lesson. It's on explaining the intended effects of a rhetorical strategy on an audience, which is something that a large majority of you need to work on because so many of you have forgotten what that is. And it is so crucial in rhetorical analysis. So it's the only lesson for this week. After that lesson, you're going to do reflections over your Q2 number 4. You will have your Q2 number 4 graded and returned to you in Canvas by Thursday morning, or probably Wednesday night, more like it, but definitely by Thursday morning. And then you'll do another peer evaluation over that returned Q4. After that, moving on to the end of the week, you'll need to finalize the timed essay that you wrote, revise and expand on it as much as you like, and then submit it for my grading. And then you'll need to take that same essay, that same PDF, and also submit it to the PEERGRADE assignment for the following week. As for your sentence composing and literary work this week, for the sentence composing and grammar and usage, you're going to have more IXL language arts targeted skill work, just like we've done the last couple of weeks. That's a really cool program that I think is really effective at teaching some principles that you guys need to work on. And then for our lit study, starting a new novel. We finished Gatsby last week. Hope those of you who participated in that enjoyed it. If you didn't participate, there's still time. Remember, those the lit study and grammar assignments don't ever close, so you can go back and do them. This week we're starting Grapes of Wrath. Going to read chapters 1 through 6. Don't forget to watch the introduction video before you start reading, so it'll give you an idea of what to expect. And I'm changing the discussion board assignment format for this one. I didn't like the last one where we kind of did a separate discussion board for each assignment, and it was like, well, whatever cool discussions we were having is now completely ignored because we're moving on to this other board now. So this time I'm just doing one discussion board for the entire novel study, and each week I'm going to post 2 discussion questions, and you can respond to one or both of those, and we'll just get a cool discussion going out of that. So changing it up a little bit, still discussion board driven, but I think this will work a little bit better to get more extended discussions going. And finally, for this week's virus movie, if you're curious about where the images have come from in this presentation, they are from 1971's The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston. Terrible, terrible human being with his beliefs on gun ownership, but a really superb actor as far as depth of emotion and being able to just chew the scenery like that. But the film Omega Man is about the last survivor from an accidental biological weapons weapons release, and he is a biologist, and he created some sort of vaccine at the last moment that inoculated him to the biological agent. So he is quite literally the last man, or so he believes, on Earth. So the human population, as a result of this biological weapon, has been turned into a bunch of super light sensitive albino mutants. And the story is adapted from a novel by Richard Matheson called I Am Legend. And if that title sounds familiar to you, it's because this novel was also adapted in 2007 into the Will Smith film I Am Legend, the same name. Few remember, however, that the Matheson novel was actually adapted one more time. The first adaptation was back in 1964, starring Vincent Price in a film called The Last Man on Earth. So this is a book that's been adapted 3 times in 3 very different ways for the screen. And I really like it because in each adaptation, I've seen all 3 movies, they give a little bit different treatment to the afflicted, those afflicted with the virus or whatever. In Will Smith's I Am Legend, they're just kind of like light sensitive like zombies, basically, like pseudo-sentient zombies. In Charlton Heston's Omega Man, they're fully sentient and even sophisticated. They're just kind of mutated albino people, and they're Luddites on a crusade to destroy all science that all science that mankind has ever made, because they're trying to make sure that man never creates another virus like this, that sort of thing. And in Richard Price, Last Man on Earth, they're just literally vampires. He runs around with a wooden stake and a hammer, killing vampires. So really cool set of films. I encourage you to check out Omega Man. It is my favorite. That is the Omega Man from 1971, this week's virus film. All right, scholars, that's all I have for you guys this week. Continue working hard, continue being nice, continue staying home. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll see you when I see you.